All right, got me on that. Good. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see y'all this morning. Thank y'all for coming for our church safety presentation today. We appreciate Corporal Rehorn from the Fairhope Police Department being here to share with us this morning. Thank you for all the work that you guys do to protect our community and keep us safe. We appreciate you being here today. Just a couple of announcements, and then we're going to get into the program today. First of all, just want to remind everyone to be in prayer for the Nona Dunham family, and the beautiful flowers that are here on the Lord's Supper table were donated by the family in honor of Miss Nona. And so as you look at those and enjoy those, may it be a reminder for you to keep the family in prayer. I also just want to remind everybody that today is the last day for the Annie Armstrong Easter offering. So if you haven't made your contribution yet to our offering for North American Missions, today is your last chance to do so. You can just drop that in the offering plate when it comes by a little later in the service, or if you didn't come prepared to give today and want to come back tomorrow, you can drop it in the drop box that's in the vestibule there. All right, well, without further ado, let's turn to page 453, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms, and let's stand together. This will be our offertory hymn this morning. We'll sing the first and third verses, then sing the doxology, and the ushers can come forward for the offering. What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have blessed peace with my Lord so near. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above the heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.
May we pray. Dear most gracious Heavenly Father, we just come to you, Father, with bowed heads and humbled hearts, dear Lord, just seeking your forgiveness of our sins, dear Lord. And Father, just thank you for today, dear Lord. Thank you, Father, for waking us up, dear Lord. Thank you, Father, for bringing us back here in your house of worship, dear Lord, so that we could study, Father, so that we could hear, Father, so our faith would grow in you, dear Lord. And Father, we're just thankful, dear Lord, for this opportunity today, Father, to hear from the Fairhope Police, Father, on how to keep your house safe, dear Lord. Father, just bless us, dear Lord. Give us attentive ears to hear and feet to go to the works, dear Lord. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hey, I appreciate y'all allowing me to be here and talk with y'all a few minutes. This is a good program that we have here. I've kind of adjusted it a little bit for time, so I want to run about an hour and 10 minutes. But if I run a little over, y'all give me a little bit of grace because it's good information and it's good material, if y'all wouldn't mind. I also like to point out to the pastor and all of y'all, I just come for my service too, so I'm not dressed like a police officer, but I'm hoping you're just going to take me on my word that I am one. And this morning we talked about when Jesus was preaching at the house, and the 4 men took the lame man, the Bible doesn't name, and they dropped him through the roof so that Jesus could heal him. And kind of what my pastor hit on this morning was sometimes we get in the church and we get so focused on being in the church that we forget to be the church. And that person had a need, and everybody was focused on Jesus, and nobody was focused on the person with the need. Nobody was welcoming him into the house, and they had to find a way. They did. By their faith, he was healed. I say all that to say, I come to your church this morning, first time I've been here, and I've got told good morning and welcomed a lot, so I appreciate that. Take heart in that. I am Damian Rehorn. I'm with the Fairhope Police Department. And if y'all will give me a second. Am I up? I'm up there. Quit messing with it before I mess it up. We did test this earlier this week, me and the pastor did, and it worked. So if we have technical difficulties today, it's not for a lack of trying. We'll move through them. I'm the training coordinator at our department, okay? I've been there about 12 years. So my job is to make sure that our officers are trained, both the training that we go out and get, the training that we bring in. There's a couple things that I'm an instructor on, and then I try to identify other officers in the department that have a passion for what they do and want to excel in it and get them to those requisite classes so they can train officers on it as well. My job is to make your police department a little bit better so that we can be a safer community. That's what I try to do now. Perhaps they could have chosen someone different, but they chose me. It's my job, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. So that brings me to you guys here. We're going to train you guys a little bit. So background on me, I've been in Fairhope now for 12 years. 12 years at the Fairhope Police Department. Prior to that, I was in the Army for 8 years. So since I was 19, public service is all I know. This line of work is all I know. It's a calling. I love it, and I'm here. My family loves being here. I've lived all over, and we landed in Fairhope, and we're going to stay here. So what a great community we have. This morning, we're just going to take an opportunity to put some information out there and try to make our community just a little bit safer. So Texas State University has partnered with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, and they developed a course called ALERT. ALERT stands for the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training, ALERRT. What this does is sets a standard for the way that police respond to active shooter or active attacker, as we'll talk about here in just a moment, events. So in the state of Alabama, you can't even be a police officer now without having gone through that level 1 training. So that if something were to happen, if me and the officer in the back today respond to a situation like that, we're going to have the same basic knowledge. So his department, my department may run differently, but we're going to respond to the situation on the same sheet of music so that we can effectively eliminate the threat as quickly as possible. Here recently we had that shooting in Nashville. They put the body camera footage out. I'm not suggesting you go watch it because it's a terrible thing. But if you have watched it, what you would have saw was a response that is textbook as far as law enforcement is concerned. It's textbook. They went in there, they eliminated the threat as quickly as possible. So if we're learning that as law enforcement, what we found is important is we want to kind of pass on some information to the community so that you guys are better suited to respond, just like we're trying to be better suited to respond. So the federal definition of an active shooter, for as much stock as you put in federal definitions, is one or more people actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. Now, there's some caveats. It can't be gang-related violence. It can't be, a party to any other crime. Basically, it's killing just to kill. But we're going to take that active shooter and we're going to change it to active attack, and in a moment we're going to talk about why. But when we say active attack, it's attempted mass murder. That's what we're talking about. And man, I'm going to tell you, it feels really weird to be in church talking about this. I hate that this is something that it's where we are as a society, that we need to stand in church and talk about this. It feels weird. I'm not used to being up in front of the church talking anyway, so I'm used to being in front of groups not at church. So to stand here and talk about things like attempted mass murder and the subject matter that we're going to discuss with a couple of the videos that are going to play, Lord willing, that's awkward. It's uncomfortable because it's serious. It's serious subject matter, but the day and time we live in, it's necessary subject matter. So when we think about the attacker, y'all can see this behind me, right? I'm going on faith that it's there behind me. When we talk about the attacker, if you're like me, you tend to think, when we think active shooter or active attacker, as we're going to talk today, we tend to think young white male. All right? That's what we tend to think. That's what I tend to think. And I think that goes back to Columbine High School back in 1999 in Colorado. You had two young white males. We're not going to say their names. As a part of this program, we don't say the names of these killers. We're going to deny them that glory that they want. We're not going to give it to them. So I'm not going to mention any of these people's names, though sadly I think I know most of them. We're not going to give them that attention. Them two boys in Colorado that carried out this demonic act, that has been what we've kind of, in our minds, set as the profile for active shooters, or active attackers. But what we want to do is we want to get away from that, because the studies have shown, and the studies that we're going to talk about today are FBI studies, mostly from 2000 to 2014. So it's evolved even more since then. But the studies have shown that there's no set profile, but there are some warning signs. There's a certain mindset that these people, whether they be, as we saw in Nashville, it may be female. It doesn't have to be male. It can be older. It can be younger. They come in all shapes and sizes. If y'all just see me trip just then, don't laugh at me. I about tripped. It was going to roll my ankle right here in front of everybody. That would have been embarrassing. What they have in common, usually, is their mindset. They're deliberate. They know what they're doing. They're focused on the task at hand, and that's killing people. They usually, in their minds, see themselves as some sort of avenger. They're avenging some wrong, whether it be a wrong to them, whether it be a wrong to a loved one or a family member, or some sort of societal ill that they think they're curing. That's what they tend to put forth. And some even broadcast it. It's not talked about in this presentation, but we're starting to see more and more people are putting this stuff out on social media as they are doing it, as it's happening. Now, it's just my opinion. Social media is one of the greatest ills in society today. I'm not a fan of it. It can be useful. I'm not saying it's wrong to use. I'm saying it's so easily misused. And these people are starting to exploit that. And that's scary. That's scary that they're starting to seek that notoriety through their social media use. Whenever these things happen, we always have on the news, well, they'll come back and they'll say, oh, well, some Facebook or some Instagram or some Twitter postings were released, and he said this and that, and everybody goes, oh, man, somebody should have seen this coming. Yeah, usually they should have, but it's easy to see in hindsight. It's not always easy to see up close, so we're just kind of highlighting some things. Everybody that has some of these risk factors we're going to talk about, it's not necessarily going to shoot up the place, but it's something that we need to keep in mind. If you look behind me, there's some risk factors identified in this study: a history of violence, or at least an exposure to violence, substance abuse or dependence, mental illness, a history of suicidality, behavioral things like stalking or threatening, harassing behavior, negative family dynamics, poor support system, isolation, instability. Others are concerned about them. How often do we hear that? Every time on the news. Oh, he was weird. He was weird. We didn't really do anything. Yeah. They usually are something. There usually is rather something that we can look at and say, man, we should have seen this coming. We don't. Real quick, we're going to look at these: history of violence, exposure to violence, substance abuse and dependence, mental illness, history of suicidality, negative family dynamics, no support system, isolation, instability. Those are things that are growing every single day. Hello? We are seeing that more and more every day. I'm not up here to preach. I'm not a preacher, but the enemy is attacking left and right, top to bottom. They're attacking our families. They're attacking our social structures. And that's where this evil is born. Behind me, you see these dots start to creep up on the screen. What these dots are, they come from studies. You see the yellow dots. The yellow dots are shootings. The red dots are stabbings. And the blue dots are car attacks that have happened in the United States from 2000 to 2021. A small dot means 4 or less victims. A big dot means greater than 4 victims. So I thought I had this kind of timed out as I was talking, but it takes so long to get all these dots up there. But we see just how prevalent these instances are. There you saw a blue dot just pop up. I want to point out that if we look down here in the places that we here in South Alabama tend to associate with these type things, we can look down there in the Los Angeles area. We can look up there in the Seattle area. I lived there for 2 years. That's an adventure up there. We can look up there in the Northeast. We can look in Chicago, and we can see all these incidents. But you can also look right smack in the heart of Alabama and see these incidents too. You can see them in Texas, New Mexico, flyover country in Kansas and Nebraska. They're everywhere. These things are happening everywhere. It's all around us. So it looks like Montana's a pretty safe state. They look pretty good up there for now. For now. So we have to be ready and prepared for these situations no matter where we are. 460 active attacks. We're not talking about gang violence. We're not talking about warring sets in South Central Los Angeles or a gang war in Chicago. I know if you turn on the news, they're going to beat that drum a good bit. Not without merit, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about for no other reason, no other discernible reason than to do evil. 464 events from 2000 to 2021. And we're hearing about them every day since then. So a lot of times when we think about these things, we think about schools. But as you can see behind me, commerce is more often than not. Now, commerce is an all-encompassing term. We may be talking about the Walmarts. Lord knows there's crazy folks in the Walmart every day. Every day. If you want to people watch, just go to Walmart. Just go to Walmart. Just go over to West Mobile, pick a Walmart out, and just sit and watch. It's entertaining. I also spent some time at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. There's a town right outside there called Waynesboro. The Waynesboro Walmart is entertainment like you've never seen if you like to people watch. It's special. But it might be talking about warehouses. It might be talking about factories. It might be talking about otherwise places of employment where someone had come in because they're disgruntled and, again, wanted to avenge their firing or avenge their ill treatment. Avenge the harms of society this business does. There's any number of reasons. So commerce leads the way there, but right below it, in a distant second, thankfully, but right below it is education. We talk about school shootings. We talk about, what happened up there in Nashville, what happened down there in Parkland, what happened in Uvalde. Those are what get the headlines, but they're not the majority of the events. Then we see outdoors and other, not as a part of this presentation, and you'll hear me say that a lot if I have something to put in here not a part of the presentation, because this presentation, again, was put together by Texas State University, and I don't want to add to the research they're doing. They'll update it as they see fit. Not a part of this research. Houses of worship are up 34% between 2014 and 2018, according to the FBI hate crime statistics. Up 34%. Houses of worship they are rising on this list of active attack situations. That's scary right there. There used to be some safe haven. There used to be some decency, even amongst the evil. But we have I'm not going to preach. We have allowed things in our society to take over. We don't have a safe haven in a house of worship anymore. We don't. We have to be ready. Pastor said last week, y'all talked about Nehemiah. Y'all talked about Nehemiah rebuilding the wall and having people posting sentries against Sanballat's aggressions because he didn't want the wall rebuilt. We are in those days again, if we ever left them to begin with. So, just a thought. Most people would think that the people that are attacking these places have a connection. And more often than not, they do. We see there 55% of the time there's some connection. It may be a loose connection, but there's some connection to the place they attack. But 45% of the time, there's not. 45% of the time is a big amount of time. So no matter how vigilant we are on a day-to-day basis, I imagine everybody in here knows everybody. We're here every Sunday. So it doesn't mean 45% of the time, if something were to happen, it's not somebody that's sitting amongst you right now. So just be on guard for that. You can sit here and say, I'm comfortable because I know everybody in here and everybody in here loves Jesus and we're here for the right reason. Good. But it may not be that way next week. So we learn these things to try to help us stand guard. George Santayana said that if we can't remember the past, we are condemned to repeat it. Now, y'all may not know who he is. He's a Spanish philosopher. He's the same guy that said only the dead have seen the end of war. Same guy that said that. So either he was really, really smart or he was good at coming up with catchy phrases that we remember years later. Either way, same guy. He's right. Those who can't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So we're going to just briefly touch on some incidents that happened and talk about them a little bit. In UC Santa Barbara in California in 2014, this is a prime example of why we call it an active attack situation as opposed to an active shooter situation. This murderer started in his own house and killed 3 people by stabbing them. He then drove to the campus of UC Santa Barbara, where he began shooting people and then ultimately running them over in his car. 3 different weapon systems he used. We just saw the dots on the screen. He was a red, yellow, and a blue dot. He's 3-dot evil. 6 dead, 14 injured. Primary reason why we don't call it active shooter, because active shooter is doing a disservice to the dangers that we face. We'll talk about in a minute what they tend to do. I'll just be frank. This coward died by suicide once he was done with his evil. I have my opinions. I believe that well, we won't go with my beliefs. He died by suicide, and that'll be a running theme in these things. Orlando, Florida in 2016. There was an Islamic fundamentalist that went in this club. This is a club in Florida that caters to gay people. He went in this club because of his Islamic beliefs, and he murdered 49 people and was killed by the police when they arrived. He at least stood to fight it out. His connection to this club, it's a little murky. He was a patron of the club. Now, what I don't know, and maybe the authorities don't know, I'm not sure, was he a patron because that's a part of the lifestyle he lived? I don't know. I think more likely he was a patron of this club to learn the way it's laid out, and to reconnoiter his target. That's what I think. I don't know that, and this presentation doesn't tell me that. Doesn't matter. The fact is that he was there. He was familiar. Presumably, people in the club were familiar with him. That didn't stop him from doing what he did. Las Vegas, country music concert. Perched in a high-rise hotel room, he executed 59 people and wounded scores more. How do you avoid that? We're going to talk in a few minutes about a 3-word mantra that we can use, that we can put into practice to defend against not just active attackers, but defend against disasters as a whole. Those words are avoid, deny, and defend. How do you avoid this when you're in an outdoor open-air concert and someone's sitting from a sniper's nest shooting people? I don't know how you avoid it. Maybe you can deny them. Maybe you can find a position of what we call cover. Okay, so in law enforcement and the military, we preach the concepts of cover and concealment. Concealment is anything that hides you from the bad guy, anything that hides you from the enemy. Cover is something that protects you from what the enemy's trying to do. So I could go hide, maybe 15 years ago, I could have hid behind right here. But it offers me no cover, just concealment. If someone's wanting to do me harm, a bullet will go right through that. So these people out here had little chance. Maybe there's some rock wall formations, there's some cars or something they could have hid behind, but other than that, there's nothing they could have done to escape what he was doing. But we'll talk about mindset in a minute that might have given him a little better chance. New York City, 2017, a guy with a truck, an ISIS member with a truck that he rented. He didn't even own it, didn't even buy it, rented it from the Home Depot and ran over people as they rode their bicycles on a bike path. He killed 8 and he wounded 15 with a truck, never touched a knife, never touched a gun. Presumably he had a driver's license, I guess. I assume Home Depot would check. New York's fairly lawless. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. He had a truck. That was his weapon of choice. lastly, we throw this in here because we are in a church, and it was a pretty significant event. The First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs, Texas in 2017. Anybody heard of this incident right here? So the shooter here was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force, and after this situation, when they talked to some of the people that he was in the military with, they said, man, that guy was weird. That guy was weird. We didn't want a part of him. He was creepy. Yeah, we always hear that after the fact. He gets out. He starts going to church. He actually becomes active in a church, not this church, but another church he's in, and volunteers briefly at their vacation Bible school. For some reason, he then becomes atheist, militantly atheist. Now he's set on a spiral. His wife went to this church every now and again. That's his connection. About a week before this attack, he goes to a fall festival they had, dressed in all black, and was off-putting enough that people went to the church and said, hey, this guy's weird. We don't know what he's doing here. Weird. Y'all see him standing back there? It's creepy. But that was it. Everybody said, yeah, that's creepy. I don't know what more they could have done. But perhaps they could have seen something coming when less than a week later, he opened fire from outside the church, ended up working his way in the church. He killed 26 people. He wounded 20 more. And it could have been worse, but for a firearms instructor that had access to an AR-15 platform rifle. He engaged with the shooter, shot him twice, drove him back into his truck and away from the church. A chase ensued. The shooter wrecked his truck and then did what these people do. He killed himself. Now, frankly, I think that he killed himself because the demon that had possessed him and took charge of his body was done with him. I don't know. That's what I think. At any rate, but for an armed parishioner at the church, more could have died. More could have been hurt. Now, we're going to talk about being armed in the church here in a little bit, but I want to point that out. That hero right there saved lives. So what we've learned is that the number of deaths, the number of wounded, the number of injuries, they're largely dependent on two things: how quickly the police arrive and target availability. Okay? So how quickly the police arrive and what they do once they arrive, that's what the alert program is for. I hope I'm not throwing anybody off, but I like to move around. And also I hope I don't trip. So again, don't laugh at me if I do. How quickly the police arrive and what they do when they get there, that's what the alert program is designed to help us with. What this program is, it's entitled the Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events. Now, I know I just told you we're going to call it Active Attacker, but they haven't updated the title of the course. So the Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events. If we're going to teach the police officers what to do, because how long it takes the police to arrive is a factor in determining the number of deaths in these situations, well, let's train on target availability too. Hello, that's why we're here. We're going to talk about being a hard target, not a soft target. Anybody here have any idea how long it takes for the police to arrive typically? Anybody think it's greater than 5 minutes? If you think it's greater than 5 minutes, throw your hand up. So the average response time in these studies for police, 3 minutes. That's pretty good. We've gotten better at it. Now, traffic, weather, things like that can throw a kink in that. But on average, 3 minutes is pretty good. 3 minutes. That's 180 seconds. 3 minutes doesn't seem like a long time. But when the bad guy's staring you down, 3 minutes is an eternity. It's a long time. I used to teach defensive tactics. I used to teach, it was based in jiu-jitsu. And we'd get down and we would what we call roll. We would grapple on the floor. And you tell these, just when I was in the Army and a little bit in law enforcement too, and you tell these young soldiers when they come through, you don't understand how long 3 minutes is until you fought for 3 minutes. That's a long time. A 3 minute fight is a long time. I've been in law enforcement for 15 years. I ain't had very many 3 minute fights. That's a long time. I don't want a 3 minute fight. That's why I got other tools on my belt too to keep that from happening. And that's why I got a radio and partners to come help me. Because there's several people I won't make it 3 minutes with. So I try to avoid it altogether. Even though police get here within 3 minutes, even though we respond within 3 minutes, there's a lot of time for evil to be done. So we want to talk about how to be a hard target, not a soft target. We want to talk about how to best defend ourselves should we ever encounter something like this. So to do that, We're going to talk about a little bit of the background science of how people behave in high-stress environments. So Amanda Ripley wrote a book in 2008 that really did a lot of research into how we respond to stress. And then the 3 stages of disaster response that everyone goes through. Some just move through it quicker than others. The first stage is, what do y'all think the first stage is? Denial. That's the first stage. Denial. Is this really happening? This is Fairhope, Alabama. These things don't happen in Fairhope. We have our protective bubble. The flowers are pretty. These things don't happen in Fairhope. They don't, in large part, but that's not because they can't. So we need to be on guard for that. But that's what people think. When you hear gunshots at the Walmarts and you think somebody's shooting fireworks, because that's what we think. Our brain goes to the most logical conclusion for our norm. I hear that, I don't think fireworks. I don't. That's not my norm. That's not my norm. In 2002, I enlisted in the Army. In 2005, I was in Baghdad, Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom. I come back. I've been in law enforcement for years. I hear gunshots. I don't think fireworks. But most people do, and thank the Lord they do, because that means their mind is not bent on evil. Their mind is not set on that. But when you think about it and you hear those fireworks at Walmart, you have to then think, wait a second. Nobody shoots fireworks at Walmart. They don't. We're sitting here in this church. If you hear pops, you don't think, it's a balloon popping. Who brings a balloon to church? No church I've been. Do you bring balloons? Maybe. Maybe it could be a balloon. Maybe. I never say never. So we go through that denial. Once we realize something's wrong, then we have to deliberate. Okay, there's danger. What do I do? What is my next step? And then we have to go through to decisive moment, taking a decisive action. Am I going to run? Am I going to hide? Am I going to lay down on the floor and pretend I'm dead? Am I going to fight? What am I going to do? So I've went through denial. I've went through deliberation. I've come to the decisive moment. I've made a decision, and now I have to act on it. So is this video going to play? Let me talk about it a minute before we do, because it may not play. Come on, video. It's my favorite video, too. So what we try to do is to teach people how to prepare themselves mentally for situations like this. But we can't reach everybody. We can't. But we can reach some people. So if that video played, it's a great example of what we call social proofing. Social proofing simply means if we teach enough of the people what to do, the rest will follow. Because when these incidents happen, when something abnormal, shocking, scary, traumatic, when it happens and we're not ready for it, we don't know what to do, but if somebody looks like they do, we'll follow them. Because they got an idea, I don't have any idea, they must be better prepared than me. So that's kind of behind what we're doing here is social proofing. If you got to watch this video, what you see is this young lady right here is a part of an experiment. She doesn't understand what the experiment is. She's waiting to actually go back into the office for the experiment. Everybody in the room around her are actors. So in the office, there's a beep, an audible beep. And every time the people stand up, they sit back down. She looks around because she doesn't understand what they're doing, but eventually she starts to stand up too. One by one, the actors are called out of the room until it's just her. I really wish it would play. It's kind of funny. And when it's just her, beep, she stands up, she looks around, she sits back down. Then somebody comes in, somebody new, another study participant, not an actor, who doesn't know what's going on. Beep, she stands up. The person looks at her, what are you doing? And she said, I don't know, that's just what you're supposed to do. One by one, more participants come in until everybody in the room is standing up on the beep and none of them have any idea why they're doing it. But they're doing it because they saw someone else do it. That's social proofing. We made it the socially acceptable thing to do. Now that is a slippery slope with a deep drop off right there, the socially acceptable thing to do. But what we're talking about is the socially, the correct thing to do in an emergency situation. We want to use the power that socializing has over us. We're social creatures. That's how we're made, right? We are social creatures. We are beautifully and wonderfully made to be social. The Bible says, do not forsake the gathering together. We're supposed to be social, right? So we're going to use that to our advantage. That's what social proofing is. Is it going to play? No. So once we get to that deliberation spot, people are typically going to be, I'll move on ahead here. People are typically going to be at a point where they can't reason the way they normally do. I don't have my clicker. If I had my clicker, I could quit coming back over here. So the human brain and the lizard brain. The human brain and the lizard brain. Now, you may have noticed, but I'm not a neurologist. I'm not a doctor. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the brain does, but I wouldn't take it as medical advice. It's just things that we've observed over the years. And people much smarter than me with much more student loan debt than I have put this together. Okay? So the human brain is a reflective thing. It's a beautiful thing. We think. It's flexible. It's rational. Some more rational than others, but it's rational. It's slow. We can input information. We can mull it around in there, and we can spit out a response. We can spit out a reaction. That's the human brain. The lizard brain takes that brain and shrinks it to about that big. Again, not literally. I don't know that it literally does that. But for our purposes, that's what it does. It is not reflective, rather it is reflexive. It reacts to the situation in front of it. It's fixed, it's emotional, it's fast. Its job, the lizard brain, is to remove you from danger. The lizard brain, the reactions from the amygdala, they are designed to remove you from danger. The lizard brain is what allowed us to evolve from cavemen being chased by tigers and lions when we didn't have structure to where we are today. But for the lizard brain, we probably wouldn't have been able to make it because I don't think we've ever been able to outrun them. They're pretty fast, I hear. Never been chased by one. Hope to continue that going. So that's what the lizard brain is, as opposed to the human brain. Now, the reason that's important is because the lizard brain controls our fight, flight, or freeze. When we're in a panic mode, when we're in a high-stress situation, everybody's heard of fight, flight, or freeze. We're going to do one of those things, and we're all wired a little bit differently. Behind me is a chart that talks about heart rate. The average heart rate, most people's average heart rate is between 60 and 90 beats per minute, all right? So at 60 to 90 beats per minute, we're in condition white, or maybe condition yellow there, we call it. That's when we're thinking rationally. That's when our human brain is at work. Then we get startled. Maybe it's the middle of the night and you hear something outside out by your window and you're startled. Well, that 60 to 70 beats per minute, maybe now that's 110 beats per minute. As you just, what is that? And you go to look, and as you go to look, you hear it closer. Maybe you hear the screen door opening. Whoop. Somebody's opening my screen door at 11:30 at night. I'm not expecting any visitors. Now, I've got 2 teenagers. My heart rate's going to go up for a much different reason. It's going to go up for a much different reason if somebody's sneaking in my house at 11:30. I promise you I'm not going to spare the rod. And I mean to the one coming in. The one's already in. I'm just going to give them a preview of what's coming. But if we're not expecting that, now we're starting to creep up 120, 130 beats a minute. We're in condition red. We start to lose some of our fine motor skills. Now, I want to point that out. When we start to lose our fine motor skills, maybe we don't have the ability to get to the phone and get it out and get it opened and get my face on it so it opens up and dial 911. Our fingers lose dexterity. Our mind loses dexterity a little bit at that point. We're not as smooth as we were. Well, now the door's open. Glass is broke. Somebody's coming in. We're up at 150. We're in condition gray, maybe even 160, 170 beats per minute. We're at an all-out panic now. We've lost fine motor skills. Now we've lost gross motor skills. Now we have an inability to even move as smoothly as we normally would, let alone think. let alone manipulate. We're sitting here in church. I don't know who's armed in here. I'm not going to ask. Don't care. But if you are, and you're up at 150 beats per minute, panicked because terror has beset you, can you get to that weapon and employ it properly? Maybe you can. Maybe you can, but I promise you, if you can, there's some things that we're going to talk about in a minute that you've had to do beforehand. 175 beats per minute and greater, that is all out. Everything has gone wrong in our mind then. We are completely in the lizard brain. I have some videos that are going to work in a minute, and we're going to see that. We're going to see that deliberation and how it takes place when we get to the lizard brain, when we can't make rational decisions, and all we're doing is focused on our own survival. 175 beats per minute, that's when the brain stops doing the little things that it does to get us through the day, the involuntary things like control our bladder, bowels. Like our brain does that. We don't have to tell it to, thankfully. But when you introduce a certain amount of stress on the human body, everything that the brain is telling the body to do is then focused 100% on surviving. We want to find ways to lower our heart rate and lower our stress response. And we do that through education, and we do that through preparation. See if this video will work for me. Oh, it's up there. All right, so you're going to see a lady. This is surveillance video from a store that's getting robbed. You're not going to see the robber. That's not the point of the video. You're going to see a lady come in with her baby in a stroller. For whatever reason, she decides to take her baby out of the stroller. I'm not about to show you an image of a baby getting hurt. Don't think that. What I am going to show you is this mom trying to get her baby out of this stroller. Now, my kids are older now. They probably need me to push them around and tell them what to do every day, but I don't. But I remember when we did, and you take them in and out of that stroller 50, 60 times a day. I mean, she's done this hundreds of times. Watch how long it takes her to get this baby out when stress takes over. You gonna make a liar out of me video? Nope, good. There's no audio to it. There she is. People bumping into her. They don't care. She's trying to get that baby. They're fixed on escaping. You see how long it took her to do something that she does 40 times a day? That baby was what? Let's just say he was 18 months old. She's taking that baby in and out multiple times a day for at least 18 months. And all of a sudden, she finds it hard to do. Her fingers just don't work the same way. Her mind just doesn't work the same way. Meanwhile, she's got people beset by panic, bumping into her, about knocking her over. Most of us, not all, but most of us give deference, at least to babies, if not to women and children, to babies. Not them folks. They give deference to getting out of there. That's the lizard brain. They didn't even consider the fact they about knocked that mother over trying to get her baby. I think I would have took the stroller, personally. I don't know why we had to get him out of the stroller. But, again, that's applying rational mindset to a person that is incapable of that. I say this all the time. I say this to younger officers. We talk about people that commit crimes, especially drug-related crimes, and I always say you can't apply logic to an illogical mind. If you try to figure out why somebody's doing something stupid, there's a good chance you're not going to be able to figure it out. And if you can figure it out, what's that say about you? So, I don't know why she took the baby out of the stroller, but she did. Took her a while. So, does anybody remember a few years ago the Station nightclub fire? So, a lot of people died in that fire, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And I don't know why, of all the shootings and everything, I hate this part of the presentation the most for some reason. I don't know. Maybe this is just the devil's act. This isn't even the act of a person that happened here. But you see the red dots up there. Those are exits to this building, this nightclub that these people were in. You see the main entrance hall, 1 there. You see 2 by the kitchen, 3 by the main bar, and 4 back there to the right of the stage where the fire happened. We're going to go through this video. It's pretty quick, but you're going to see the audience go through the stages of disaster response. So you can see the fire back there behind the stage. Nobody seems to be reacting to it. Nobody sees that, hey, that smoke's not normal. They're in denial. Eventually, somebody says, hey, this ain't right. We should get out of here. So they start moving back towards the exits. In a minute, you'll hear the fire alarm. There's the fire alarm. So now we've got a fire. We've got a bunch of people. And we've got that loud screeching. Panic has set in. And everybody pushes to the same door. Panic is set in. They push to the same door they came in because their mind can't get to the fact that there's other exits available. People are falling down. They're being trampled. The lizard brain has taken over. Doesn't care who I'm stepping on. All I know is I've got to get to safety myself. Now, that's not a remark on any person in that situation. Rather, it's a remark on their preparation. I don't think that anyone made it out of that nightclub. I don't think any ill about them for wanting to make it out alive, for having a desire to live. But that's why we need some preparation. That's why we need to have some understanding of what our mind goes through. This next graphic is tough. If you look at each one of those orange dots, that represents a body inside that club after that fire. 31 people in the hallway trying to get out the main entrance. Another 18 in one stack and 9 in another, just trying to get into the main hallway so that they can get out. We see 1, 2, 3 other exits. Nobody considers them. Now, I don't know this, but I'm assuming the people back in the offices and apparently the video game center of the bar, apparently they're back there and didn't know what they had until it was too late. But the people certainly, as you saw, on the dance floor in that area knew what was going on. But the lizard brain took over. And all they knew was to go out the way they came in because they weren't mentally prepared for anything else. And I would imagine that there was probably already a little bit of weakening of their ability to reason anyhow, given the nature of where they were. So that's, I mean, I'm going to briefly flash this next picture up there because it's terrible. Still shot from a camera that survived. That's people trying to get, that's in the middle of the fire. That's people trying to get out. We'll go off that. They didn't know any different. They didn't know any better. So what we want to teach, one of the things we want to teach other than our avoid, deny, defend mantra, we want to talk about how to calm yourself in these situations just through simple breathing. In through the nose, hold it 2 seconds at the top, out through the mouth. I know it seems basic, it seems elementary, but there's studies behind it that alone, that act, maybe not once, but a couple of times, can reduce your heart rate by 20, 30 beats a minute. It can take you from condition red back into condition yellow, maybe into condition white, and allow you to stave off that lizard brain for a little bit longer so the human brain can engage and think. And then hopefully the decision you make is the decision that other people follow. Talks about shift your emotion there too. That comes in the defend portion, and we'll talk about in a few moments. So how do we do this? How do we get to right decision making when it comes to reacting to this? So there's two words up there, script and practice. I don't think I need to define practice to anybody, but I want to talk about what scripting is because it's effective. When I'm on patrol, when I'm riding down the road, I think the next traffic stop that I make, if the guy jumps out of the driver's seat, as I've seen in many training videos, he jumps out of the driver's seat and starts coming back to me, what is it that I'm going to do in response? How am I going to respond to that? Am I going to get out and point my gun at him and tell him to get back in the car? Maybe. Am I going to get out with my taser ready to tase him? Maybe. Do I throw the car in reverse? Do I run right over him? I've seen training videos where they get out for any number of reasons, not the least of which is to launch an attack. So I prepare for that in my mind by scripting. I run those scenarios. Okay, I stop the car. He jumps out. I get out, I pull my gun. I pull my gun on somebody that just wants to come back and yell at me because they have had a bad day and I just stopped them for speeding. Now I'm pointing a gun at them. That's not a good idea. Okay, I get out and I give them a chance to come back here and tell me, well, what they do want to do is do me harm, and they produce a weapon, and now I'm behind the 8 ball and my life's in danger. That's not a good idea either. What do? So I go through these scenarios. When I respond to a call, am I going to be met with violence at this call? I script it when I get there. When I get to this domestic violence call, if she's outside and he's inside, what's the first thing I'm going to ask her? Is anybody else inside? If nobody else is inside, I'm in no rush to get in there now. Everybody's safe. If there's other people inside, I need to get in there where they're at. I script that so that when I get there, I don't have to ask her, is anybody else inside the house? And she said, yes, my kids. And I go, what should I do? Nope. I already have a script. I already have a default that my mind goes to. That's what we hope with scripting. It's no different when we walk in this building right here. We come in this building on Sunday morning, and again, it's awkward to stand in front of a church and say that you should be doing anything other than offering praise and listening to the pastor deliver the word of God. But we have to have in our minds, if something happens, there's an exit there. There's an exit there. You know, when you go through that exit, there's a side door exit. There's back into the back. There's an exit that way off the back. Am I remembering right, Pastor? There's exits that way. Just knowing that right off the top of my head. So if somebody comes through this door, now, I know they're not likely to because I know the doors are locked back there because I know the pastor has done a great job of hardening your target here. Also, when I left the bathroom, seen somebody locking the doors. So it's not likely they're going to come from that way. But if they do, we don't have to all get bunched up at the back right there. If a fire starts right here, we don't have to get bunched up right there because there's another exit there. There's another exit there. That's scripting. That's saying, what will I do if something happens? Practice, that's just mental rehearsals. It's a mental rehearsal to try to put yourself in the right frame of mind, should you have to. That way, you made the decision with your human brain before the lizard brain took over. And that's the goal. You made your decision with the rational brain before the irrational reflexive brain took over. You were able to reflect on the situation and develop a plan rather than react to the danger that was presented in front of you. Couple that with some breathing to get your heart rate down, you might just make good decisions to get out of the situation, and that's what we're looking for. We circle all the way back to target availability. The better decisions that you make in the situation, the quicker that I get there, the quicker that we respond, and the better that we respond, coupled with the better that you respond in the situation, means the less likely the bad guy is to do harm. And that's what we're looking for. That's what all this is about. Rick Rescorla, I think I've skipped through the video here. I'm not asking anybody to be Rick Rescorla. Most people can't be Rick Rescorla. I don't know that I could be Rick Rescorla. We don't ever know till we're in the situation, and I hope I'm never in the situation. But he was, I know that's difficult to read right there, so I'll surmise it for you. He was the vice president of corporate security for Dean Witter Morgan Stanley in the trade centers when it was bombed in 91. He led the evacuation effort to get people out of that trade center bombing in 91. 10 years later, he was still there at Dean Witter Morgan Stanley, and he led the evacuation effort of September 11th. He was last seen going up the South Tower, pointing people down, pointing the people that were in denial, the people that were turning off their computers and grabbing their purse and calling and saying, did you hear that huge boom? Why on earth would we wonder what the huge, you're 90 floors up and there's a huge boom. I don't care what it is. I want to get to the ground. But that's a rational brain. Panic sets in. We don't think that way. But Rick Rescorla did. And he saved hundreds of lives on September 11, 2001 because he had scripted this. He had rehearsed it. He had prepared for it. And when the moment came, he was ready to respond. And because when people that didn't know what they were doing looked around, they saw somebody that did and they followed. I think there's a correlation there between that and the church, by the way. That's just me. We talk about going in the church or being a church. Just me. Civilian response. Don't deny what you hear. You as civilians, don't deny what you hear. Don't make some reason up why you're hearing what you're hearing. That was awful loud. I didn't expect for it to be that loud. I apologize for not giving you a heads up on that. But it helps to, I promise I won't do that again, by the way. It helps to drive the point home, though. When you hear that, and you're in a situation like at church or at a restaurant, you don't need to figure out what it is, get away from it. There's nothing good coming from it. But your brain is going to try to make sense of that noise. Last night, I lived down off County Road 32. There was a big old wedding off of Scenic 98 there near the Grand. And about 11 o'clock, I mean a big wedding, and they let off some fireworks. It was an impressive fireworks show. So they let off the fireworks. I get up and I look at it because I hear it when it starts, and I'm able to quickly realize, okay, I don't think there's any automatic gunfire at 11:30 at night in the field behind my house. If there is, they're just killing coyotes, and I'm good with it. But I was able to realize that it was fireworks. So I get up and I actually go look. I know this because I actually worked an event for the wedding 2 nights ago. So I knew what it was last night. I didn't expect it to be that big a fireworks show. But my son, he's 16, he comes running in there. What is that? Is that automatic gunfire? Why? Why would it be automatic gunfire? But I'm kind of glad his mind went there. I'm kind of glad his mind went there. Because it didn't make sense that there'd be fireworks on April 29th randomly at 11 o'clock at night. It didn't make sense to him. So his mind thought, is that automatic gunfire? No, it wasn't. It was fireworks, but good job. Way to be thinking. And he come to me, I guess he ran towards the sound, but it was to me on the other end of the house, so I give him a pass on that. But it goes to show our minds are going to assume things that we may have to push past. Our minds are going to try to make sense, because our world is not filled, ours, mine, yours, is not filled with violence. So when violent things happen, it's not the norm for us to respond and know that it's violence. And I don't want it to be. But we need to understand that we have to push through that if the situation ever comes. And we have to script beforehand. We have to put these scenarios in our mind beforehand so that we'll know how to react, because we are not violent creatures. We're not used to the violence. We're not accepting of the violence. So we're not going to recognize it right off and be able to make good decisions when it comes. So we're going to pre-decide through scripting. My hide and hope slide's up there. I clicked one ahead, so y'all been looking at that guy hide. So what do we do if something happens? Now, we can be talking about an active shooter. We're talking about disaster response. So we talk about avoid, deny, defend. We'll forget active shooter for a moment. We'll think about a tornado. You're going to do what me and my family did last night. We're going to go to Mobile and go shopping. Risky enough, I know. We made it back. But if there were a tornado warning out, a line of storms was coming through, West Mobile, capable of creating tornadic activity, or tornado was spotted on the ground, guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to go to Mobile. I'm going to avoid it. That's how I avoid the tornado. If I'm here and they say tornado warning for the eastern shore, like they have been doing, is it just me or has it been more often here lately? Coming off the bay, it's been more often the last couple of years. Tornado warning for the eastern shore. I'm going to avoid it. I'm not getting in my car and going and driving somewhere. Whatever I need at Walmart can wait. Whatever I need at Dollar General can wait. That's how I'm going to avoid it. But if I can't avoid it, it's on top of me. Avoidance didn't work. I'm going to deny it the opportunity to get to me. How am I going to do that? I'm not going to go outside. I'm not going to go outside and stare it down. I'm going to take the suggestions that they say. I'm going to get in the center room of my house, in the most secure area that I can. Small room, walls, no windows, and I'm going to hunker down there. That's how I'm going to deny it access to me. I'm not going to sit on the back porch watching it rain and thunder until the tornado's in my backyard and then try to react to it. Not going to do it. But if that doesn't work, then I have to defend myself. How do you defend yourself from a tornado? I don't know. I hope I never have to find out. Best thing I can think is get in the bathtub, hold a mattress over top of me and my family and pray. That's the only thing I can do. That's defending against it. So it doesn't matter the disaster, whether it's a tornado or an active shooter. Those are the steps we're going to take. I'm going to avoid it. Active shooter comes through that door right there. I'm getting out of here some way. When I go, and I'm probably going to jump ahead with slides. Y'all bear with me for Let's just get them up there so we can see that. I'm going to avoid the shooter. After I avoid him by running at her, I'm going to deny him. So the old mantra used to be run, hide, fight, right? It's still good advice, run, hide, fight. But let's say the shooter's out the front of the church right there. We're talking about shooters primarily. Let's say he's out in the front of the church. And I get out of my car and I take about 4 steps toward the door and then I see him. Maybe it's something like Sutherland Springs. I can take off running that way. But I'm not going to outrun that bullet. I'm not talking to you. Excuse me. Siri's talking to me while I'm talking to y'all. That bullet's going to move about 1,162 feet per second, and much as I try, I just can't match that speed. So avoiding's not going to work. Running's not going to work. I need to avoid it. So I may run this way, and then as soon as I can, I may duck behind that urology building right there. I'm still running. But I put a barrier in between me and him. I've avoided him. Now he's focused on somebody else. I know that sounds terrible, but we're talking about survival. I put a barrier between me and him. So I didn't just run, I avoided him. Let's say he gets in here. Oh, no, the bad guy's here, and I'm running through that door right there. Well, if I went through the door, guess what he can do? Right through the door. So when I go through the door, if I have the mindset to think real quick, let me lock it. Let me lock it, because studies have shown, and we'll talk about in a minute, like at Virginia Tech, a locked door oftentimes will stop the gunman. Because he wants to move to a target-rich environment, because he or she knows that help is on the way and they want to do as much evil as they can before the help gets there. So if I can just lock that door, if there's a bookcase in front of it, push that thing over in front of it and barricade that door. That's a little different than hiding. When you're a kid and you play hide and go seek, the ultimate goal is not your goal. It's the one searching for you, is to find you. And if they find you, you're it, right? Not in this scenario. If they find you, that's it in this scenario. So we don't want to just hide. We want to deny them the opportunity to us. Barricade the door, lock it, block it, get some blocks, some door shims up under the door. Some things that we talked about that we could do to harden some targets. Some commercially available products will help do that. And then at last ditch, if that doesn't work, we have to defend ourselves. So when I come into this room, if the shooter's outside and I can't lock the door and I come in, I don't want to come in this room and run to this wall over here and give him the opportunity to come in and shoot me. I want to put myself in a position where when he comes in, I can jump on him and I can grab a hold of that gun, and hopefully I got some help, and we'll grab on it, we'll ride him to the ground like a calf, and we'll hopefully tie him up and wait for the police to get here or wait for somebody else to get here. Everybody here, it's going to come up here in a minute, but I think we're going to skip it for time's sake. Everybody hear about the 3 service members on the train in Paris when the Islamic terrorists come in? That's exactly what they did. They said, let's go. They didn't even have to act or think about it. They didn't communicate about it. They were from 2 different service branches. They said, let's go. Because they'd already rehearsed that in that situation. They already knew what they were going to do if they were confronted with evil, and they did it, and they saved lives. One of them took 3 stab wounds, but he lived, and so did everybody else. We talked about armed parishioners. We talked about being armed in the church. This video plays. It's not very long, but I want you to watch it right quick. This is the Panama City School Board meeting in which a shooting occurred. We're going to kind of watch the way people react and respond, and there's something specifically I want to talk about in it.
From the technology, you'll notice it's on the chart that you have there.
So a man gets up,
It's part of it.
angry, and starts spray painting on the wall
I have to follow this meeting, but,
while the school
this
board
will be the
president's
first
talking.
step in that whole process.
You'll hear him in a second. They're watching him. Hear the spray paint?
Everybody in this room.
V for Vendetta. He's got the Avenger mindset. He's got a gun. Why are we sitting here? Some people are hiding. Not very well, mind you, but they're hiding. He tells everybody in this room, get out. His problem's with the school board. Watch the lady that comes behind him.
John's just going to talk. He's talking. John, go ahead.
She's got the drop on him. School board president does a good job of keeping him engaged. That didn't work. That didn't work. So his wife had been fired by that school board, and he was there to avenge her. Like we talked about the avenger mindset, he was there to avenge her. Now, he was a terrible mass killer because he didn't kill anybody, thankfully. I guess it's a good thing to be terrible at that. He didn't kill anyone, thankfully. He was shot by a security guard, and then he ended up killing himself. The lady there that come in behind him, she had great intentions. She had to drop on him. She could move in on him. She could secure the bad guy. Great intentions. She had every right to defend herself and everybody in there, but you know what she didn't have? The ability to do it. And that's the difference. So I'll loop back around and we talked about carrying a weapon. If you carry a weapon concealed, good. Carry your weapon concealed. I'm a fan of it. I am. You can go, if you're not sure about the new laws that were just passed that addresses how to carry a weapon, you can go to the Fairhope Police Department Facebook page, scroll back a little bit, and we talked to the FOP about it, and then we had a community meeting about it as well that covers concealed carry. Take that up with the pastor about if you carry inside the church or not. The law doesn't have an opinion on it, unless the church says don't do it, and then we do have an opinion. My point is, just because you have that weapon, you have the right to defend yourself and everybody else in this building, but that doesn't mean you have the ability to do it. If you haven't taken that weapon out of that holster in the last 16 years, you don't have the ability. If you don't every now and again go target shoot, I'll say target shoot. You don't go put rounds down range at something. You don't train with that weapon. You don't have the ability. If you don't script these things in your mind, what will I do? You don't have the ability. That's not a knock on anybody. I encourage you to go shoot. Go get proficient. Watch, there's training videos all over. You can go on YouTube and watch video of anything. You can watch people doing it the wrong way and the right way. You can seek out more information from the police department. Come sit down and talk with me. I'd love to talk with you. We'll talk about training that we could do. We talk about good resources. There's people in this room that can give you good resources, I recognize. But if you're not training, if you're not scripting, you're not going to be as effective as you think. And that's even on a good day. Now, couple that with the fact with your heart rate's now at about 160 beats per minute, and you're not thinking nearly as clearly as you normally do. So when the bad guy comes in, and here I sit, and I'm going to engage him from the back row because with my little 9mm pistol, I can take on the world, right? So here I go. I stand up. But everybody else in between me and him has stood up too. But because my heart rate is now so high and I'm in panic mode and I'm not thinking, I'm tunnel visioned. I am focused on the attacker. I'm focused on the bad guy. In a minute, we're going to talk about tunnel vision and auditory exclusion. If I'm focused on the bad guy, what am I not focused on? Everybody else that just stood up in between me and him. I'm not focused on them. And that poses a big problem. So this is not me telling you don't carry a weapon. It's not me telling you don't stand ready to defend yourself or anybody else. It's not me telling you that. It's me telling you to make sure you're ready to do it if you're going to put yourself in a position to do it. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you. See the gunman go in this Jewish deli right here? Look at all the people immediately. They run out, right? You got people that immediately made the decision. That's not sped up either. That's how fast they were running. They don't want to be any part of that. Good for them. Good decision. They had an opportunity to get out, and they took it. Surveillance camera video right there. This person's avoiding. Y'all see her? I don't have my pointer, but y'all see her there by the ladder going up the wall? She's avoiding the gunman. Look at the door, standing wide open. She's hiding. She's not avoiding. She's not denying him at all. She's hiding. He can come right in that door she just went into. There's an exit. So what ended up happening, if you actually watch the video, she pushes on that door, but she never pushes the push bar. She could have got out. But she was so tunnel visioned, so panicked, she couldn't make rational decisions. She couldn't get out. There's a ladder she could have climbed up. She could have got out. But she didn't. Lock the door behind you. Barricade the door behind you. As you can see, I think I can click over. She didn't barricade the door. She had plenty of things in there to barricade the door with. I don't really know what that is, but they're pointing it out. That's some big metal frame that she could have barricaded the door. Those are $2 at Walmart. You can keep those on hand. shim that under the door. It's not going to get open. It doesn't have to withstand a battering ram. The bad guy's not bringing a battering ram. He's going to go try to open the door. When he can't, he's going to go to another door. That's what we want. That's what we want. And then we're going to hope that everybody else here did the same thing I did. When I went through that door and I blocked his entry into it, that the people that went through that door blocked his entry too, and by the time he realizes what he's done, he's confronted with the good guys. That's what we're hoping. There's also other little commercially available items like for an outward opening door. There's tensioners, tension sleeves, and ropes that you can use to secure that door. A little bit of advertisement in here, as you can see. I'm going to move through it. I know we're getting up on time. I'm going to play you a video here of an interview with a teacher from Sandy Hook. It's not very long. I just want you to hear what she had to say.
All day we have met people who remind us what teachers do, how much they care, even in the face of terror. And I sat down with a first grade teacher at that school, Caitlin Roick. She heard gunfire, large windows exposed her classroom, so she managed to rush 15 small children into a tiny bathroom to try to save their lives.
I put one of my students on top of the toilet dispenser. I just knew we had to get in there. And I was just telling them it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right. I pulled a bookshelf before I closed the door in front of it. So it was we were completely barricaded in. I turned the lights off.
Did you tell them to be quiet? Did you
yes.
worry about one of them?
No, I told them to be quiet. I told them we had to be absolutely quiet. Because I was just so afraid that if he did come in and then he would hear us and then he would maybe just start shooting the door. So I said, no, we just have to be absolutely quiet. And I said, there are bad guys out there now. We need to wait for the good guys. They're coming down. I wanted us to be okay. And I'm so saddened that there are people who in this situation are not okay. And my heart goes out to anyone who knew them and was part of their lives. I just can't imagine.
Did they cry?
No, if they started crying, I would take their face and say, it's gonna be okay, show me your smile. I really tried to and one of my students was, would say things like, I know karate, so it's okay, I'll lead the way out.
They really said to you, we want to go home for Christmas.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or I just want to hug my mom, or just, things like that were just heartbreaking, and in my mind, because you're hearing, I've never been a part of something, obviously, anywhere near this traumatic. And so I'm hearing the gunfire in the hallway, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm the first classroom. Why isn't he coming? I'm thinking we're next. And, and in my mind, I'm thinking, as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, what are your thoughts? What are your, and I'm thinking that I have to almost be their parent. I have to tell them, So I said to them, I need you to know that I love you all very much. And that it's going to be okay, because I thought that was the last thing they were ever going to hear. I thought we were all going to die. And I don't know if that's okay, teachers, and, but I wanted them to know someone loved them, and I wanted that to be one of the last things they heard. Not the gunfire in the hallway. It's just horrible. Horrible.
How did you know you were going to be okay? What happened?
I didn't. What finally happened was the gunfire stopped. The gunfire wasn't that long, so that stopped, but I said, no, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here until someone good comes in, gets us out. So eventually what happened was the police came and started knocking, and obviously, I was completely beside myself, and I said, I don't believe you. You need to put your badges under the door. So they put their badges under the door. I said, if you're really a police officer, then you would have a way to get in here. You would have a key, or you would have gotten it from the janitor. If everything's okay now, you would have found the keys. So he had keys, and he found the right one, and he unlocked the door, and then they brought us out to the firehouse to meet up with the rest of the teachers and students, waiting for parents to come and pick them up.
I think there are a lot of people who wish.
So I've cut a few things out of this presentation for time's sake, and I do know that we're running up on time. I have a timer right there. I'm known to talk for a long time if I get the opportunity, so I'm cutting that down a little bit. But I wasn't going to cut her out, because we're going to stand here today and we're going to talk about all kinds of evil. My God, we need to hear from her. She deserves that we listen to her, because she saved those kids' lives because she was prepared. Even though she was terrified, she was prepared. Is what she did the best option? I don't know, but it worked. It was effective. It beat just hiding in the corner and waiting on him to walk in the unlocked door. But she had prepared for that. Sadly, that's the world we live in today. So I wanted to take a minute and listen to her. If denying doesn't work, then we may have to defend. This is a part of the training that we teach, just a little still shot from it. You see how these people are right by that door, and they're waiting on that gun to poke through, or that bad guy to poke through that door? Most of these guys, again, you can watch anything on YouTube. Some of them are going to be more tactically proficient than others. But a lot of them aren't thinking tactically the same way we are about threshold evaluations and cutting the pie on the door. They're just coming in the door. They are at target-rich environments that they don't expect resistance from. They don't expect it, so they're not clearing the room the way the police would. But look how they stand right there. If they had no other option, there's nowhere else to run. They're going to stand on the outside side of that door, and then when he walks in, they're going to grab a hold of him, just like those couple of airmen and that sailor did on that train in Paris. And then they're going to fight. And they're going to fight. Hopefully we're on the short end of 3 minutes because it's a long fight. We're going to try to get that gun away. We're going to hold him down. We're going to gouge his eyes. We're going to step on his neck. We're going to do whatever we got to do. Because at that moment, it's us or him. Now, I'm not saying get the gun and shoot him. I'm not saying that. I did not advise you to do that. What I did say is survive. And that's what we're doing. So hopefully we never get to the point where we got to do that. But think about it. If I'm standing right next to that wall when he walks in, hopefully I can surprise him and get the drop on him, because if I'm standing way over here when he walks in, he can reach out and get me long before I can reach out and get him. So that's kind of the mindset that we go through in our scripting. If something happens, what will I do? What happens if I go through that door? What happens if I go through that door? How can I best prepare myself to defend myself and other people if I have to? Watch this guy right here. I like him. Store's being robbed. He don't know what to do, but he's about to go to work with somebody on that wine bottle. He's about to go to work, and then he thinks, okay, I got a moment to get out. I'm going to get out. He takes the wine. He may have earned the wine afterwards. I don't know. But that was his thought. That was his first thought. Let me grab this. This is the hardest, heaviest thing I can find. And if I have to, I'm going to work somebody's head with this. Would he have been successful? I don't know, but it's better than just hoping for the best and doing nothing. This guy right here, Brian Murphy, he was the first responding police officer to the Sikh temple shooting in Wisconsin a few years ago. I may be wrong on the numbers, but I'm not too far wrong. He was shot 13 times in that parking lot. 13 times. He said the only thing he could think about was his family and how he wasn't going to die in a parking lot. I'm 39 years old. I'm nowhere near wanting to die. Like I want to go be with Jesus, but I'm not trying to go today. You know, I think there's more things I can do here. So I don't know what difference it makes dying in a parking lot or dying somewhere else. But that's what he said. I didn't want to die in a parking lot. I'm not going to let my family down. That was his motivation to fight, and he fought. He didn't die. The shooter did. He didn't. We want to avoid, deny, defend. That'll work. Active shooters, that'll work for tornadoes. That is a good mental script to have no matter what situation confronts you. Avoid, deny, defend. Avoid it. Get away from it. Don't be around it. Don't just run from it. Avoid it. Don't hide from it. Hide and seek. The point is for the seeker to find you. We don't want to hide. We want to deny. We want to run and hide, and then I want to lock the door, and I want to push a pew in front of the door, then I want to dump a bookcase over in front of the door. I'm going to block it up as hard as I can. When the police get there, I'm still going to be stacking stuff on top of the door. I'm going to make them work to get in there. That's why we have firefighters. That's what they do good. They get into stuff good. I'm going to make them get in there to find me once they've eliminated the threat. And then defend lastly. If we get to the point where we got to defend, we're fighting for our lives. If we look at this little line of attack, the attack starts. Our first decision are the primary exits. Can we get to him? If the answer is yes, then we avoid the situation. Let's get out. I'm going to get out that door. Outside, I've avoided the situation. If I can't get to an exit, no, then I'm going to have to deny. Then I'm going to barricade that door up. I'm going to plug it up. I'm going to hammer wood shims up under the door. I'm going to dump the wardrobe or the dresser in front of the door, whatever I have to do to deny them entry. And once I've done that, is there another exit I can get to? Maybe I can bust out a window and climb out the window. But before I go busting out windows or trying to unlock windows, I need to make sure he can't run right behind me the way I just ran. I need to deny. Once I've denied, I'm going to try to avoid again. There's other exits. Can I avoid them? Yes. I'll go back to avoid and get out of there. But if I can't, I may have to defend. Real quick, and we're wrapping up. Virginia Tech. Norris Hall on the second floor. Does everybody remember the Virginia Tech shooting? Terrible. Terrible. If we look in here, and I'll just scroll through them right quick. So what you see there, the red dots are dead. The yellow dots are wounded. The green dots lived. He went in room 211 3 different times. He went into room 206 and killed just about everybody in there. He went into room 207. Room 204, there was a teacher, a professor. Ludwig, I believe, was his name. He barricaded that door while kids climbed out the window. So there were, see the green dots outside room 204? It's because the teacher, he's the red dot there, stood in the doorway long enough for his students to get out. We look down in 205, there's not a single casualty in 205. The students heard the shooting and had the presence of mind to lay down in the floor and barricade the door with their feet. So the shooter comes up to the door, goes to shoot into the door, does shoot into the door, but they're laying down, and he shot like this. Why? Because he's not a tactician. He shot like this. Well, they're laying down, bullet goes over them. Nobody wounded in room 205. Nobody killed in room 205. You can look at the statistics in the other room. Started in 206, 211 was the deadliest room. He went to 207, 204. The professor saved lives in 204, and then the students defended properly against it in 205. Police are going to get here. Do what they say. You're going to be scared. Do what they say. They're going to tell you to put your hands up. They may even treat you like the bad guy because they don't know the difference yet. That's okay. They may use rough language. They might. They will. Pretty sure of that. Pretty sure of that. That's okay. We're way past the language at this point if we get here. They may yell at you. Just do what they say. We'll sort all that out later. Make sure you show your hands. Right here. If you're armed in here, if you're armed and you decide that you're going to engage the threat or be ready to engage the threat, and the police come in here, and I see that officer right there, what you think the first thing I'm doing is? Getting away from it. I'm not going to take the time to say, hey, brother, I'm one of you. Because I'm going to get, hey, bro, and that's it. That's it. If he's a good shot. If he's not a good shot, I may get to scream in pain a little bit on the floor. Drop the gun. Show the hands. And then don't move. Don't do anything they tell you to do what to do. Our mandate when we get there, according to alert, again, that's the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training. We want to do 3 things. We want to stop the killing. So if you're wounded here and the police respond, they're going to step over you. They're going to keep moving. Now, you're probably going to say, help me, help me, help me. You may even grab their leg. They're going to step over you because the first priority is stop the killing, then we'll stop the dying. Once we eliminate the threat, then we'll address the dying, and then we'll evacuate the injured. So it's a kind of quick triage situation. The most pressing threat is the threat. Let's eliminate it. Then we're going to stop the dying, whether that means placing a tourniquet, whether that means rushing people out. Whatever that means, we're going to do that, and then we'll start to move people out. So you may be stuck in here for a while. That's fine. Just do what they say. Don't go jumping out the windows right there, because for every police officer coming in here, every police officer's coming. They're all coming. Fairhope, Silver Hill, Daphne, Baldwin County, Highway Patrol. They're all coming. So you go jumping out that window right there. Good luck. Police officers out there too, and they're looking for a bad guy. And we all look the same, at least in a moment. So do what they say. I'm not going to play that video. Well, I guess I am going to play the video.
If you're not cool, I'm not watching it, dude.
Listen how calm he is.
Sir? Go. Watch that deputy right there. Keep your hands where I can see him. All the way to that deputy.
Keep your hands where I can see him.
Left wing deputy's out.
Do what I tell you to do. He's leading them out. But he don't know that they're not the threat. So he's making sure that he's both leading them out to safety.
Trying to relax, everyone. Trying to relax.
Listen to him calming them down. That's a great job.
Before you do, that's for damn sure. Just be cool, okay?
Assuring them while understanding that they're still a threat. So just understand that, God forbid the situation happens, the police officer you get may not be that calm. He may be a little more hyped up. That's fine. His goal is to get you out of there. His goal is to make sure that the shooter's not hiding among you. As it is in the level 1 alert training, that is something we train on. The shooter hides among the people trying to run out, because we've learned that's a common tactic. You don't know who it is. Y'all don't know. Y'all heard gunshots. Y'all said, oh, man, I got to get out of here. And then all of a sudden, I've shot 3 or 4 people. I drop the gun and I go with you. Y'all don't know. And the police certainly won't know. We train on that. That's why they treat you that way. That's why they're going to tell you to show your hands, do what I tell you, don't move till I tell you to move, things of that nature. Okay, so don't be offended when they do. Understand that we know there's people in here hurt. We know there's people in here dying. EMS is not coming in to a warm scene. We call hot scenes, warm scenes, cold scenes. Cold scenes mean the danger is done. Hot scenes mean it's active. EMS isn't coming till the scene's cold. They're not. They're not coming for you, and they're not coming for me. So we may be here a little while. You may get drafted. Hey, who in here's got some medical training? You may get drafted. Just be ready for that. If you have some training, make it known to your security team here. Hey, I'm ready. If ever need be, if anything ever happened, I'm ready. Send me. And that's a way that the church can stand ready as well. You can expect there to be mental trauma, so there needs to be an instant stress management plan. And that'll look like whatever you guys think it looks like. I don't think there's any better place than a church for that. Again, we don't name them. We're never going to name these shooters. This right here, I'm not going to, it says to ask, but I'm not. Victoria Soto was a first grade teacher at Sandy Hook, and she died defending her kids. We do need to name her name. Angela McQueen was a PE teacher, in Mattoon, Illinois. Middle school student come in with a gun, pulls the gun out. She rushes the student, tackles him, and holds him on the ground until the police get there, and nobody died. Angela McQueen's name we need to know. Victoria Soto's name we need to know. These other demons that commit these acts, we don't need to know their names, and we don't need to focus on what they do. We need to focus on what we can do to be better. I hope that today, I know I've run a little over. I apologize. I hope that today is kind of giving you some things to think about. Hey, what can I do if something like this were to ever happen? If ever there were a disaster that presents itself in front of me, what can I do to better prepare myself for safety? Script, mental scripting. Just a quick in your mind. Hey, if this happens, I should do this. Something as simple as that. Breathing. In through the nose, hold for 2 seconds, out through the mouth. Hold for 2 seconds. Those 2 things right there will up your chance of survival very quickly. And then, pastor's already done the things he needs to do at the church to harden the target. These things will work whether you're at church or you're at Walmart. So I hope I've given you guys something to think about. I hope I haven't droned on too long. I did go 10 minutes past the time I said I was going to go. But like I said, I can talk a lot, as y'all now know. My name's Damian Rehorn. I am most Monday through Fridays, I'm at the police department. If I can do anything for you, if I can help you, if I can talk, if I can point you in the right direction, if you want some more resources, please let me know. All you got to do, if you don't come in and remember my name, just ask for the training officer. Just ask for the training guy. You can ask for the guy with the big nose that talks a lot. They'll know who you're talking about. They'll come get me. Hey, there was a guy that came and talked a lot. And they said, no, I know who you're talking about. They'll come get me. And we'll sit down and talk. Have coffee, whatever we need to do. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate you very much. Well, thank you guys. I know we've got quite a few visitors here today, and we are just thrilled to have you. This is not our normal Sunday. So we would love for you to come back and join us again to worship with us and learn with us and be disciples with us another time. But because of the day and age we live in, it is absolutely necessary, and I hope that you feel like the time that you spent here was well worth it. I hope that you learned something, and take this with you. Do these same things at your home when you're sitting at the table. Think about if somebody comes in through that door, if somebody comes in through that window. Do it in the gas station when you're filling up. If somebody comes up, if somebody crazy drives in. If you'll start thinking about these things, I know it seems like a dark way to approach the world, but it's not. It's being prepared, and God gave us the mental faculties to be able to do these things because He loves us, and we are treasures to Him. And He wants us to be safe. So thank you for allowing me to have this program here today. Thank you for our security team and all the hard work that they're doing. This is a journey that we're on. Just because we're implementing some things, putting some things in place, doesn't mean that we're safe. We've got to stay on top of this each and every day, each and every time we meet. We're constantly going to be looking to improve, but I just want you to know that we care about you, and that's why we're doing this. All right, let's all take a deep breath. It's been an intense time this morning. We want you to come back at 5 o'clock. We're having a fish fry. All right? We're going to let it all hang out. We're going to relax a little bit, just enjoy each other's company and fellowship. Be back at 5 o'clock. The deacons and the prayer team are hosting this. There's no charge or anything. You don't need to bring anything but yourself and your appetite. So let's go to the Lord in prayer, and we'll be dismissed. Thank you for your patience today. Father God, we are just so grateful to be yours. We are so grateful that you loved us enough that you saved us, that you sent your Son to die in our place for our sins because you loved us. And Lord, we are heartbroken that we live in a day and time, that a day that we devote to praising you, today we had to devote to protecting ourselves and preserving ourselves for you. And Lord, I pray that you honor this time. Lord, first of all, I pray your protection that we don't ever need anything that we've heard today. Lord, we pray that all of this is for nothing. But in the event that something happens, Lord, I pray that because we have done this today, you will bring us clarity of mind so that we can be safe and secure. And in the meantime, just like we sang earlier, we are leaning on the everlasting arms, safe and secure from all alarms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms. Lord, may that be what we carry with us as we leave here today. Faith in you. It's in Jesus' name we ask these things. Amen. God bless you and have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you at 5 for some fish.